What is up? Welcome back. Apologies in advance for the mess. I'm mid-repair, but I wanted to take a moment to record this video because I recorded a version of it, didn't really like how it shook out, and then I went on a walk with some friends of mine, and I had to scrap the whole video. So here we are, we're back, and I want to talk about this. This is a Yashica 44. I recently got this because, you know, we all suffer from our own vices. Mine at the time is camera collection, and this is an interesting camera to collect. At face value, it is a medium format TLR. It's pretty compact. It has interesting color design to it. I think it was made in Japan, I'm not entirely sure. And it has a social security number, I think, dremeled into it. So I'm thinking, all right, pretty nice. Has a light meter, has a pretty decent looking focus screen situation there. The problem begins when I do this. And I see 127 film only. And I think to myself, I think when I bought this, it said it was 120, and that's not the case. It is 127 film. And you might be asking yourself, what is 127 film? And the answer to that is simple. It is the in-between from 35 to 120. It isn't really made anymore at all. There's a few companies, I think, that respool some variety of it, but for the most part, it does not exist. And for all intents and purposes of this video, it does not exist. This led to a series of thoughts of what other film mediums right now will no longer exist in a few years' time, or will wane favor in a few years' time. And my immediate thought was medium format. Medium format to me doesn't seem like it's as popular amongst certain crowds as 35mm. It doesn't seem as accessible as 35mm. And it doesn't seem as profitable as 35mm. And in this scenario, I'm kind of positing that 110 doesn't really count because the only people producing 110 is Lomography. And, bless their hearts, I appreciate it as somebody who shoots 110. But let's just be honest, it doesn't really exist in the greater conversation here. So between 35 and 120, I was thinking 120. And then that led me to the thought of Lomography film here. And I had done a recent video talking about this Lomography film and how it was revitalizing the 120 medium. And with their just sheer discounts that they were doing, I was like, they gotta be selling this at a loss or whatever. Like, it's a great deal. And honestly, the film is really solid. However, this whole video kind of fell apart because I went on a photo walk with some friends, and they were like, 120 is it. I love shooting 120. I'm never going to not shoot 120. A lot of them were thinking they're just going to shoot 120 and not 35mm anymore. And not one of them was talking about shooting Lomography 120 film. So that kind of tanked that idea because I was like, Lomography is the savior of 120, but I don't think that's the case. I think 120 is its own savior. I think it's the kind of quality film you can't really get anywhere else. It's very portable in terms of the cameras. The quality of film you get, the quality of photo you get is so much sharper, so much more defined than 35mm. Overall, just very quality stuff. So now I'm stuck here. I've got no idea for the video. I've got this camera with an outdated format, and I took a bunch of pictures on Lomo 100 that now I'm just going to have to talk about. So let's just go through them quickly, because I kind of enjoy how they came out. So went down to LA and had this package of Lomo 100, and I loaded it in my Mamiya C330. And here are a few of the results. A rose up against a wall. I really like the crispness of the shadows and the kind of desaturated nature of the rose itself, but the vibrance of the greens on the leaves, I think that really turned out well. This kind of blown out architecture. The sun was very bright that day, but there's still a lot of detail in the sky, a lot of that like nice blue. And then the green plants and stuff I feel like are really well represented here. This photo here I think is a little bit blown out, if anything. But I do kind of like it because it has this very warm and inviting, regal feel to it. We're at the Getty Museum in like north of Los Angeles, and just the brightness of the water, the warmth of the surroundings, just really play nicely into the overall setting. Probably one of my better compositions, if I'm honest, which is not saying much. But the sharpness of this film is something that I'm really, really stoked about. I enjoy the layout of like this long garden with this like central pool and the statue. I just think it looks really, really nice. The harpoon shot looks like my good buddy Jeff Wing here, bald head. This guy actually, interestingly enough, had a Mamiya C330. I think that's something that I want to talk about again. Every time I take the Mamiya C330 out anywhere, whether it be in San Francisco, whether it be in Phoenix, whether it be in Portland, whether it be in Scotland, there's always someone who's stopping me and be like, oh, man, that's super cool. That's a neat camera. I always find myself in these discussions with people that I otherwise wouldn't have talked to. I just find it to be one of the few cameras I have that can really change the experience of a photo walk or of any kind of road trip or adventure, because I find myself having these discussions wouldn't normally have, and kind of creating a little bit more personality to the image here. This guy was kind enough to let me take his picture, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I've also never like spoken to somebody who's like gonna go harpoon fishing, so that was interesting. This last picture, image 2, I shot inside at my parents' house over Christmas, and I just want to point out something. This is kind of in comparison to the Phoenix film, where the inside is completely on exposure and the outside is completely blown out. But you can still make out so much vivid detail on the inside of the image because that's what I exposed for. And the outside obviously is a few stops overexposed, so that's completely blown out. But that's okay because I'm not paying attention to that. I'm like wanting to focus on the inside. Whereas the Phoenix film, I felt like when I was focusing on the inside, exposing for that, it was completely muddled in shadows and the outside was overexposed. This, I feel like, does a really good job of retaining detail on the inside of the image. I think the colors are looking ultra vivid. I think for being such a slow film, it really handles well in this interior scenario. Because you think 100 speed film, you think this will be good for bright, sunny outside days. You don't think inside. And yet this kind of pulled it off perfectly, I thought. The takeaway is that I really needed to soft pedal the initial approach to this video, in which I was like, 120 film is on the way out. Like, no one ever shoots with it. Because I had a moment of realization with friends that people love 120. People will always love 120. I will always love 120. And I hope that it doesn't take the same route of 127 and fall into obscurity, because it ultimately is a very quality medium in which to produce images, in which to capture moments. And I feel like Lomography pricing their 120 film the way that it is makes that much more accessible for a lot of people. That's kind of my final thoughts on the matter. Like I said, I've been meaning to make this video for a while. I've just kind of been putting it off because I've had a difficult time with the approach, but I hope that this kind of made sense, and I hope that this is something that invites you to purchase some Lomography color film. I think that the 100 speed film is probably my favorite. I've shot the 400 before. I really enjoy that as well. I've not shot the 800 before, but I suspect that I would enjoy that as well. So, that all being said, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it as always. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. I'll catch you on the next one.